Alright everyone, we start off today with something hilarious. Kamala Harris, of course, going over to Puerto Rico and being humiliated. We will talk about that on today's live stream. Keep in mind, tomorrow I will not be making any videos or doing my live stream. I will be in transit, actually, back to sunny Netherlands. Yes, I'm sure that it's a lot warmer there than it is here at the moment, considering, there's about 2 feet of snow outside. It never snows in the Netherlands. You get like 2 dustings a year, and that's pretty much all. Sometimes you can actually make a snowball. Kamala Harris is trying to strong-arm Israel at the moment. Yes, it's inexplicable. I couldn't believe it myself when I saw her comments. I'm like, what are you smoking? It makes absolutely no sense. Keep in mind, this is technically speaking the second most important chief diplomat of the United States. Technically, Biden is. And then it's Kamala, and then it's the head of the State Department. It's Blinken. The problem is all 3 of them are retarded. And so they're trying to strong-arm the Israelis, warning of consequences. Don't you go into Rafah. There will be consequences if you do. The insinuation, of course, is that the consequences will come from the U.S. The facade story is more like, no, there will be international consequences. If you go in there, it'll be terrible for you, and so you shouldn't do it. The problem is Netanyahu, when he got up this morning, he went into the refrigerator and he got some lox and some cream cheese, and then he grabbed a bagel and he smeared the cream cheese on the bagel and carefully laid the lox on top. And he went to his computer, I'm sure, and then he saw this report. And then he almost choked to death laughing on the lox. I mean, who's going to take Kamala Harris seriously? Of all of the people in the world, like even Joe Biden, you'd take a little bit more seriously than Kamala Harris. She's just a complete chucklehead. And in her case, it's not like when Biden was VP, or it's not like when George W. was president. She actually is that dumb. And none of these people understand anything about diplomacy or foreign policy. And that's why we're in the mess that we're in now. This is actually a microcosm of the same reason why Hamas attacked Israel in the first place. It's because of a weak and feckless U.S. foreign policy. It's not because of Israeli policy. It's not because Hamas magically decided to be suicidal. It's because there's really no underpinning, no central sort of core of power in the Western world at this moment. So instead you get a Eurozone-style bickering. You get the Germans and the French and the UK and countries like that sort of kind of scrapping to take the fore, while the US leadership is completely out to lunch. None of these people understand the way in which cultures in other parts of the world work. In the United States, you're raised in a country where, other than the Cold War mentality, you don't really worry about anyone invading the country. There's too many guns, you've got too much manpower, too large a land area to occupy, etc., etc. So other than, the migrant crisis, you don't really worry about invasion. You don't worry about 100 million Chi-Com soldiers suddenly making a D-Day style landing in California, though I'm sure that Gavin Newsom would welcome them with open arms, so maybe we should be more worried about that indeed in the end. You don't worry about that. But if you're in a part of the world that's experienced numerous domestic wars and terrorism on a near constant basis for half a century, yeah, you might look askance to the situation when Hamas decides to come across with its paragliders. Now, again, I'm not taking sides in this. I take the side of America first. I'm not Team Israel. I'm not Team Palestine. Israel has lost the optics war. But keep one thing in mind. When that happened many moons ago, when Hamas did decide to come over and gang rape a bunch of people and burn down houses and take a bunch of hostages, Netanyahu was faced with a virtually impossible scenario. He had no choice but to respond very forcefully, because otherwise he'll be out on his ass, and then the next dude that comes in, they would respond forcefully. Somebody who's even more nationalistic than him would just come in, sweep up the political landscape completely, and then go and ass blast Gaza anyway. It was inevitable this sort of incursion would occur once Hamas had staged its own incursion. He could have namby-pambied it and just, done a couple of bombings or something, but then what do you end up with? You end up with videos of all those hostages clearly beaten up and gang raped by 1,000 fucking dudes and broadcast on social media or something like that. Even if you have no reasonable expectation of repatriating most of those hostages, I'm sure that the remnant is probably dead by now, or maybe they've been sold to Libya or something like that. Hamas is like, huzzah, we made $200 or something. You have no choice but to forcefully respond. It's not the same kind of diplomacy that you engage in the West. And this is the problem with the Biden administration, a problem that was not shared with the Trump administration. Donald Trump has done business in China and Russia and places like this, where things are more fraught. There's a different mentality when you're in the negotiation room. But Biden's never done that. He was a senator long term. He wasn't doing foreign diplomacy or anything like that. He never understood it. As VP, what was he? He was a court jester. He played the chucklehead on TV for Obama in order to counterbalance the rather dour young black male thing so the boomers would vote for their ticket. That was the entire point of having Biden there. He seemed bewildered by it, by the way. He's like, well, I don't know who the running mate will be, but I know it won't be me. Well, yes, Joe, it was you, because you were literally perfect for that particular slot. It makes the boomers think you're the president of the United States and Obama's basically your boy. You're the massa or something like that. All the white plantation boomers, they loved that one. They thought it was hilarious. I mean, I'm watching the administration attempt to strong-arm the Israelis, and I'm thinking, under what premise do you think that that's actually going to work? Netanyahu is in too deep now anyway to withdraw. Even if he didn't want to have troops there, and he probably does because he seems a little bit screwed up sometimes, he has no choice, politically speaking. What would happen if Netanyahu announced a ceasefire today? Well, there are still hostages in Gaza, and they haven't cleared out Rafah. And that's the warning that Kamala is giving. Don't go into Rafah. Okay, the one last place where there probably are still maybe a couple of living hostages. You don't want the Israelis to go in. They're going to go in. It's inevitable. Ain't going to be a ceasefire till that happens anyway. And do you think that Kamalaharris, of all people, would be able to broker that? I would love to see that negotiation. She sees the dead children. I mean, she's trying to convince Netanyahu to stop. She's like, oh, you killed 30,000 civilians. Hee hee hee. That's probably her reaction. She's nuts too. Everyone in the administration other than Buttigieg appears to be off their rocker. And he's off his rocker too for being part of the administration. He's destroyed what political career he could have by playing whipping boy and having to be sent to East Palestine that time. That didn't go over so well. It went over better than Biden's visit though somehow. No, Harris is nuts. I mean, put yourself in Netanyahu's shoes. Again, I'm not Team Israel or something. I'm not being sympathetic towards what's happening in Gaza. But you're a political egotist. You want to maintain your power. 90% of your population is going to call for your goddamn head on a fucking stick if you withdraw right now while there are still hostages there. His hands are tied. Even if he were inclined to withdraw, he can't physically right now. Ceasefire is perfectly fine. Do you expect Hamas to honor it? I don't think so. Do you expect that the hungry masses there won't mob another aid convoy and the Israelis won't shoot them down like they did before a few days ago? Of course it'll happen. And then you'll be right back outside of the ceasefire. The violence will continue to spiral around the toilet like a fucking turd. There's really nothing that can be done in the situation. Israel will probably effectively annex Gaza. Things will go back to a seeming calm, with a constant authoritarian military authority, attempting to rebuild infrastructure that will continuously be sapped by Hamas, and it'll be a waste of everyone's time and money. And the worrisome part is that it never had to happen in the first place. All you needed to do was have sane U.S. leadership. And if Trump is reelected, I have no doubts that he will quickly go over to Israel, and the problem will be solved. It won't be a lasting peace or anything like that. Hell, with the Abraham Accords and the moving of the embassy and stuff, he had some successes there, and that's much to his credit. He was more successful in Korea, actually, which is hilarious. But even then, it'll be a seeming calm, which is basically the best that you can hope for in that region of the world anyway. That's about all. Peace out.